So let's talk about the biggest lies in the book marketing industry. This is a fun one for me because I am in the book marketing industry and I am so annoyed by bad actors in the industry that give me and my company a bad reputation. So I want to talk about just some of the lies which I believe are the biggest in this industry and what to look out for. Hello, my name is Bennett. I have a PhD in social psychology and an undergrad in marketing. For the past 15 years or so, I've been helping thousands of authors publish and market their books. And I can do the same for you through our company, BookMarketing.pro. The first one is any book can succeed if you put enough money into it. Think about this. Of course, somebody who sells you a bunch of promotion and marketing is going to like this lie because they're going to get more money from you. The more money you invest in your book, then the more it's going to succeed. That's not the case. The case is the more money you invest in the book, the more likely you are to sell more books. So notice the difference. We're talking about the quantity of books that you sell versus, let's say, a success rate or profitability, which is most important. So it's kind of like buying your own business. I give you a good example with I do Google ads a lot, and sometimes I realize I'm just buying my clients. So I'm paying, let's say, $1,000 to attract these clients, and then I'm doing all the work for the clients, and I'm only making $1,000. So what's the point? I'm doing all this work for free, essentially. That's kind of what we're talking about with book marketing. If you spend all this money in marketing and you just get a fraction of it back through the sales, even if you get the whole thing back through the sales, well, your book's out there. I would say that's actually a pretty good thing. If you spend $1,000, you get $1,000 back, um, and yet you still sold, let's say, 100 or 1,000 books or whatever. That's a pretty good deal because your book is in the hands of readers. Every reader that has a book is kind of like a walking advertisement for your book, especially if it's a good book and it's something that they like to talk about. So that's kind of the point. You want to do that. But the problem is that's not what always happens. The more money you put into it, you could get your book in the hands of more people, but it doesn't mean it's going to be more successful. It just means that more people are going to have your book and you could actually lose a lot more money. That's why we always suggest to kind of start smaller, get your book in the hands of a decent group of readers. If you get like, if 100 people are reading your book, that's a really good start. In statistics, that kind of sampling is usually a good sample size, meaning that you could deduce some logical explanation from that sample that you're trying to find out. So, for example, like, is my book going to catch on organically? If you give it to 5 people and nothing happens, you don't know that the sampling is too small. If you give it to 100 people, then you have a really good percent chance, like a 95% chance of knowing with confidence that your book will or will not catch on. So you don't need a ton of money to go into it. So don't believe that lie that somebody tries to sell you. The next lie I want to touch on is the Amazon pay-per-click works. Well, it depends on how you define work. If you define works as makes you money, profit, then no, it rarely, and I mean rarely, works. If by works you mean it gets your book out there and people will click on your ad and you'll sell some books as a result, then sure, yeah, it works because your book will be hidden otherwise. But if you have an ad out there, you're going to dump a lot of money into it, but people will eventually click on the ad and buy your book. So it works in that sense. But if you think you're going to be rich or this is going to be a silver bullet or kind of like a cash cow, you put $100 in Amazon ads, you make $200 in exchange for that $100. No, that's not going to happen. In fact, there's no book marketing that I know of that works that way, even for the best books. It's just more of a long tail, like a long-term type thing. Next, keywords and categories are really, really important. No, they're not. That's, I don't know. I think I'm kind of stretching it when I call this a lie because a lie is more deliberate. But I think that people who do specifically promote videos or sell this idea, keywords, buy my software for keywords and categories. No, they're not that important. What's most important is the algorithms, like Amazon's algorithm. And they really know more about your book than you do. And they're not going to be misled by the keywords or the categories that you feed them. They have their own systems to be able to derive the best keywords and categories, especially from your title and from your description. Title and description is very important. Keywords and categories, not so much. So don't fall for any kind of service that really charges you a lot of money to specialize the keywords and categories because it's probably just a waste of money and time. And the next lie is the book bros on social media are honest. Um, and what do I mean by that? The book bros, these are usually the pretty young kids who will show you screen captures of how they made $20,000 in 1 month selling this book. And you could do it too if you just buy their book and buy their formula, take their class, pay for whatever. Um, no, it doesn't work that way. They're almost all of them are full of it. Again, I've been researching book marketing for a long time. I know what they're selling, and I know it doesn't work. Uh, did it work for them once? Yes, maybe, but and that's a big maybe because I think that a lot of them are not completely honest. It's kind of like when you ask somebody, hey, how did you become so successful? And they tell you, they're like, I'll tell you, all you need is persistence. Or they think they know how they became successful, but they don't. The vast majority of people don't know the chain of circumstances that got them to where they are. Similarly, in the book industry, if you ask me, for example, hey, Bo, how did your book Logically Fallacious get to be so successful? And why is it always like number one in logic category? And how come you sell so many copies and have so many reviews? I could say, make something up and tell you why and give you a whole bunch of reasons. And those may be contributing factors to the success of the book, but it's not the reason. The real reason, I would say, like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened to make that hit. More generically, I could say that it just, the market accepted the book. The market was hungry for that book at that specific time, and it took off. That's probably the closest I could come to an honest reason for why that book did well. So when these book bros tell you about the books that they make and they tell you you can do it too if you follow their formula, it's almost always a lie. That's not the case. They don't know. Maybe they think they know, but more often than not, they just don't know and they don't know. And they're just trying to sell that to you because they want to make money. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And those are some of the things to look out for we're looking at the book marketing industry, some of the lies. And you want to avoid those or avoid people selling those lies. Take care.